of the things that we found out when we produced the Charter for Rural Communities was that really vital communities plan their futures. And that sounds really simple, but it's quite a difficult thing to do well if you're going to involve everybody in your community, young people, older people. And we found somewhere that manages to achieve that so imaginatively. And that's down in Cornwall. And our colleagues at the Eden Project, apart from the biomes, do community planning really well. They're inspiring. And they use artists, they use creative people from the theatre, and they make the whole thing sound so much like fun. It's not a bureaucratic exercise at all.
I'm Tony Kendall and I'm Foundation Director at Eden Project, and that means that I get to work with all the interesting stuff, the content. We look after the exhibits, the events, but we also do partnerships and projects that go outside, and a lot of the outreach work we do, including projects with Carnegie. Eden as a public visitor destination has an education focus. We're an education charity, and the basic themes of the project are about reminding people about connections, all the things in the world that they're dependent on in the natural world, but also on each other. So we try and make connections with land use, with communities, with all the different things that people do to keep each other going. We're in an old clay mine here. Eden's built inside an old clay mine. And partly from the very beginning, we wanted to make a symbol of transformation and change and new possibilities for this part of the world. It's a landscape that various of us have known for a long time. We've seen big changes in the industry, the mining industry, but it follows very classic patterns, you know, the typical post-industrial situation when industries that people have been relating to as communities for generations start to fade, then that throws up questions not just of economy, but of the very sort of geography, the purpose, the nature of the land, the nature of people's relationships with each other. Our challenge is to work with those communities, always has been, to try and invent a new future for Mid-Cornwall. We think it's a challenge that's got resonance around the world because we can see all over the place big change, things no longer working to the rules that they used to work to. And so what we're trying to do is gain some learning from that we hope others will find useful.
Post Mining Alliance is a small team based at the Eden Project, and we're looking at how we can use the regeneration success of Eden to provide some narrative for mining sites all over the world. In Mid-Cornwall, where the Eden Project is at the eastern end of, we have a 200-year tradition of China clay mining. But what we've seen over the last 10 years in particular is a gradual diminution of who's been employed around here. So I would say that probably as recently ago as 15 years ago, there would have been 10,000 people in this area employed in the China clay industry. We're now down to about 1,000 people. Our focus is really to look at what happens to the people and how do we create a sense of community, a sense of belonging and pride when mining has stopped. And that's really what ClayFutures is all about. It's about talking with the communities about what they can achieve and what's possible.
The ClayFutures project grew out of a need for somebody to run an engagement event with the local community for them to consider what their futures might be against a background of change, particularly in relation to the mining industry, and on the back of that, an eco-town proposal, a £600 million development proposal over 700 hectares of land, which is a lot of land, 500 hectares of which is green space. But up until recently, the only engagement event had been run by the mining company itself, and it was very traditional. They arrived with display boards with lots of architects' drawings and men in suits, and actually hadn't really created the kind of right atmosphere for engagement around what the possibilities could be for the future of those communities. So we were commissioned by DCLG along with some other organisations as well, partnership organisations, and we were able to use our Carnegie project to help us pull together this project. Well, the ethos behind it is to create a very welcoming event that's very informal, and we have gone for a community fete style approach. It appeals to lots of ages. Everybody knows what a community fete is. You know, it's very familiar. We basically have gone with what people know, used strong cultural references, created a very playful environment in which people basically are simply just feel confident to be able to say what they want.
The Century Trust is one of the partners in the ClayFutures project, and we were very keen to become involved because of this interest we have in the connection between people and place, and also we were very keen to ensure that the process was inclusive and gave the opportunity to those more traditional, I suppose, hard to reach groups within the community. We set the event up around the theme of a fete, and each table was developed around one of the themes that we actually wanted to talk to people about. So when people came in, one of the first things they saw was an aerial map of their village, and we were able to sort of allow people to identify their house, and then we were able to start unpacking sort of some of the things that might have been lost from the village, some of the things that people might want to bring back, and then looking at sort of the way that people might want to see their village actually develop, and then looking at a sort of wider area in terms of the regeneration and the way that would link to the village. And it also allowed sort of us to look at the good things that were happening within the community and the way that that can actually be sort of transferred or built into a new development in the area. But we really tried to make the whole process not about filling out forms and questionnaires, but really ways of interacting with things. With the one that we set up around housing, we had stamping activities where people could look at different ideas and then write free text about things they wanted to do and houses that they'd like to see in the area. And I think people really liked that approach, that they weren't made to just write loads of things, you know, the stamping, the ladybirds, the art activities, the giving and awards, the whole thing. I think, you know, there was a lot of different things that people could actually interact with. The research will be collated by the ClayFutures team and written up into a report. This will actually be given to Cornwall Council and then DCLG, who actually funded the project. But the wider picture, I suppose, is that we hope that this information will be used to incorporate into the regeneration of the area, either the Eco-Town proposal, should it go ahead, or the development of the parishes at the local level. You know, we've started that level of engagement with people about what they want for their village in the future and how that links to the development of the area. So there's a huge range of things that actually have started to come out of this process, from small patches of land that could be used for allotments to a whole view about how housing should be more energy efficient in the area, you know, a whole sort of range of things. So I think, as well as the reporting side, we've got a whole new area that can be explored through this process.
The clay area is a very interesting one because it has so many different ways in which you can look at it. If you look at it in the sort of traditional perspective, and people will talk about blighted land, post-industrial land, land that at the very least needs regeneration and things like that. But in the classic sort of asset model of things, you can also look at it and you can think, wow, what incredible potential. There's nothing like it, certainly in the southwest of the UK, but possibly not anywhere else in the country of such a scale. So many thousands of hectares of land that could be reinvented for new ideas, new possibilities, from energy through to biodiversity conservation, through to food and farming, through to recreation, through to a whole panoply of new uses. And the fact that this is coming at a time when everybody's asking questions about how the world works and rethinking our relationship with those things on a more local basis, we think it's got a terrific potential. So we'd like to see it busy, active, full of people, you know, working together as communities, working with the land as communities, and working on dependencies, both local and global.